regardless of whether you find what I find repellent as I find it, the idea that eventually we'll reach a point where everyone can agree, I suspect has disappeared and dissolved without us really noticing over the last few years. The point at which you would imagine there would be a very, very, very broad consensus is never going to come, because he's done today already something that I can't quite. It's like Lisa Nandy said a moment ago to Nick. It's shocking but not surprising. He's done something that even his supporters said he wouldn't do. His closest supporters said, no, he's just messing with you. He's playing psychological games. The idea that he, in campaign mode, would ever dispute the result or seek to negate votes that have been cast in advance by post, then he did it. I mean, just listen to this. I mean, this would be, if we still believed in traffic stopping moments, if we still believed that there is a point at which the evidence becomes so complete that you can no longer ignore it, this would have been that moment. But and you might not thank me for this, I don't believe that anymore. I now get how terrible things happen throughout history. They don't happen by accident. They happen because people think they want them until the moment that they happen. And then they carry on claiming that they wanted them all along. And then slowly it begins to fall away. And that, for me, is where we are today. So here is the President of the United States of America this morning, on the morning of a general election count. Here he is, essentially denigrating democracy.
Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight, and a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people, and we won't stand for it. We will not stand for it. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list. Okay?
And of course, he went on to insist that he wanted to stop counting, didn't he? It was remarkable, really, to reflect upon what that actually means. And yet, and I don't know quite why I'm so relaxed about this, it's almost a liberating or liberated feeling. The worst happens. And if you're expecting it, it hurts less. But there he was, essentially floating the notion of denying millions and millions of Americans their legally cast vote. Because, well, I mean, this is the weird thing. I think there's an awful lot of expectation management going on. Obviously there is. And I think a lot of people who find what I find repellent have almost prepared themselves for the worst, because the last 3-4 ballots that we've fretted over have gone the wrong way for people with my worldview. You kind of prepare yourself for the worst. And then it's even worse than the worst, because the phone lines are open, by the way. I'm not sure what line or question I'm going to ask you yet, but if you just want to have a chat, if you just want to chip in, then you're more than welcome on 0345 60 60973. Because the weirdest thing is that by doing that, and I don't think this is deliberate, but with Donald Trump, who the hell knows? I mean, crikey. But by doing what he just did, and I'll play you that clip again, because it's one of the most important political speeches of the last 100 years, potentially, depending on what happens later in the coming days. But by doing that, he has essentially made, for people who are disgusted by the depravity that he represents, as opposed to people who are delighted by it, and that is the divide that we have to acknowledge. The depravity is undebatable. The fact that I used to think everyone would eventually find it disgusting is clearly wrong, a huge error, massive misjudgment, and clearly America and other parts of the world, but America in particular, is split almost down the middle between people who find it utterly disgusting and people who find it absolutely delightful. But this speech essentially means that for those of us who find his depravity disgusting, him winning is only the second worst option now. So before he spoke this morning, there were two options. He would win or he would lose. And obviously him winning was by far the worst prospect for people who believe in sort of decency or freedom or whatever you want to describe it as. Of course, what he's done now is make him winning straight, as in winning the counted votes. That's only the second worst option that can now emerge, because him losing but claiming that he's won and clinging onto power and refusing to peacefully hand over, or whatever you may call it, that has now become worse. So what you thought was the worst possible outcome turned out only to be the second worst possible outcome, and here we are, stuck in the middle with you.